Hello Internet and hello Magic the Gathering fans. I'm Jackie Fox and I want to apologize for this deck and what I'm about to do with it because Wizards sent me on the very secret mission. Well, I'm about to share it with you now, so it's not much of a secret. To kill 25 of your creatures for a lot of gold and a lot of Mastery XP. So I'm very excited to do this. In fact, I built a custom brand new deck based on some fever dreams and some ideas I've seen other people play. But it's really janky and strange and new and interesting, and I can't keep it out of my head. So I really want to show you what this deck does, because it does some things that I feel like people want right now, but also that would be really bad if you did them in a different way. So I feel like walking through the tech of this deck is pretty important. And also, this is a really early version of the deck. You're seeing a lot of the cards that I end up still using, but you'll also notice that there's a number of things that I pulled out of this deck to simplify it and streamline it and make it actually run well. Because especially in this form, it's pretty incredibly janky. But this is a deck that says, well, about a third of the deck is removal. Not like a third of the spells. A third of the cards. It is me answering the question, how much removal can I cram in a deck as possible? And Battle of Bywater is a big deal of that. That's why I ended up switching to Alchemy initially, but also I really stabilized and fixed my mana base really well, by removing one of the colors, the theoretical colors, even though I already had 3 lands for it, and I wish I had those back, but, you know, it is what it is. But also the mana fixing cycling cards from Lord of the Rings really helped to bring this deck together too. So this is kind of, in its jankiest form, dependent on Lord of the Rings stuff, but it's also really heavily dependent on Ixalan. So this is very much a Lost Caverns deck for the most part. And you'll see that in the removal. This is very Lost Caverns removal in that basically all of this removal is artifacts, and independently, there is a lot of overlap, but about a third of this deck in terms of cards is artifacts. This is a stealth artifact deck. And I can't think of a lot of cases where there are many instances of artifacts being used for removal. Like artifacts that come into play and then remove something. You know, there's ones that can come into play and then can be like tapped or sacrificed to do something, but these just do it as they come in and then just sit around, which I thought was really interesting and something I've utilized in other decks before, and something that works with Thousand Moon Smithy. But also, since they all have crafting, theoretically these can all return late game to be threats. And that's where this deck wins games, in the very late game. In the beginning of the game, it looks like it has absolutely no win con or strategy. It's trying to run you out of cards, essentially. It's trying to burn down your options to the point where you become a little bit more predictable and easy to deal with, but also when you're top decking, it's a really good place for this deck to be in, because I'm going to draw removal as often or more often than you top deck creatures. So in most cases, if you can only play one creature threat per turn, I'm going to be able to respond to that and keep myself very safe, while accumulating other things on the board that I can beat you up with. One of those things that I can beat people up with, though, that I want to talk about before we get into some more of the artifact strategies, are the lands. I have a lot of the restless lands in my deck, 1/4 of my mana, and I have a lot of lands in this deck, even more in this one. I think this one got up to like 27 or 28. I think I'm sitting at 26 in my current one, maybe 25, probably 26 though, which might seem like a lot for some of you, but it's what the deck needs. It really is, because I want this deck to be consistent on land drops for a very long time into the game, because it's really relying on being able to do a lot of things at once in the late game. and it's accumulating a lot of ways to spend my mana and do spell adjacent things using the resources that have accumulated on the field, while it looked like all I was doing was removing your creatures. Because technically this deck is doing that, but the other thing that it's doing, perhaps more importantly, at least for me ever being able to win the game, is it's building up resources to be able to basically recycle into threats later. And one of those threats is the lands. For the black-white land, which I end up using, it's going to lifesteal 2 every time it attacks. I think every time it attacks. It only hits for 1, but it's a 1/4, so it's pretty safe against certain stuff, but ideally you want to clear the way for any of these lands to attack through. Like, usually attacking people with your lands is a pretty bad idea, because they don't get very big and they're easy to block and kill, and then they've just blown up your land, which is terrible. But if you keep the field completely clear, then you actually can push animated lands as a much more viable threat. But I don't think that maybe 6 or 8 Restless Lands alone is going to win it for this deck. And there are 7 like more normal, obvious win cons in this deck, and we'll talk about those once we get to them, because they can actually blow out a lot of power pretty quickly with the way that this deck is designed. And they're made to synergize with all of the jankiest elements of this deck as well, which I think is pretty cool. Anytime you can make jank work, that's just really fun for me. And in my mission to get the 25 kills, I started in unranked because I was like, this deck, I was just conscious of the fact that this deck was jank, but also I wasn't even necessarily trying to win matches. I just wanted matches to go on long enough that I could kill more of your creatures. And the problem that I ran into in unranked is that there was no reason for people not to concede. Sometimes even in really silly places. Now, this guy gets mana screwed pretty hard, but I only removed 1 creature that he's played, and they've only played 1 creature. But then the thing that seems to put them over the edge is when I go at them with the green-white land. Now, this is one that I don't run anymore because I filtered green out of my deck, even though I have 3 of these. I would love to use them. They give other creatures +1/+1, which doesn't synergize very well with my deck. I think the Restless Lands I have in it now are the best for it. This wouldn't work very well because I'm not really going to go wide very often. But apparently it was scary enough to cause that person to just straight up concede the game. Let's see. What else? There's also a lot of crazy stuff in the lands, and there's a lot of really technical stuff, and there's a lot of, like, especially into the late game, I end up often having, like, more options, more single things I can do than you end up having in your hand, because, you know, there's a hand limit, but I can just put more lands and more artifacts onto the field. And if each one of those has activated abilities that I can use later on, then I've essentially put my land, placed my hand onto the field for later use. A really cool example of this is Unstable Glyph Bridge, which I can later craft with something to create not only a 5/3 beater, but in addition to that 5/3 beater, one that is going to say if you cast spells you can't attack, or if you attack you can't cast spells, which will really hopefully slow them down even more than me removing everything from their field. And like, I guess I think I know why this one quit, because Tribute to the World Tree made their whole deck, everything they could possibly cast, weak to Battle of Bywater. So I guess after seeing that come out, it's like, shit, if there's another one of those, literally anything I play will die to it. But I think this is going to be my last quick concede, and then we're going to get into some of the match videos, and then we're going to get into some of the actual ranked videos, which are even cooler. They all generally end up being super polite, which is strange. I guess it's a long drawn out match, and I don't know. I feel like it should be an infuriating deck to play against, and I feel like I would be annoyed on the other side of it, but I don't know. Everything stays cordial. Maybe it's just, saying hello early and often, being polite throughout the match. Is what you want to do. This guy, I could have taken that out. Like, I have so many spring-loaded Saw Blades, but I'm looking at this 2-1 like, do I really want to waste my Saw Blades on this? Like, I have to kill it eventually. I really do, because I plan to be open. I can't just, like, leave it there, but I decided it's not that big a threat, and I actually go into aggro, which is stupid, because look, it's a 2-2. It's going to get bigger if I keep it on the field. But apparently they just weren't ready for a 2-2 that could grow. So now that we get into these matches, I'm going to start losing some of these. But also, for reasons that in hindsight seem really obvious, this is a very technical deck and a very peculiar one as well. It is kind of difficult to pilot without experience. Blast Zone being a really good example of this, because you're about to see a play that is going to ruin me. This deck isn't scary right now, but because this is just mono white life gain, right? And if you can't keep your creatures on the field to do your shenanigans, then mono white life gain doesn't do a whole lot. But Urabrask's Forge is a problem. Urabrask Forge also gets around a lot of removal, and I don't necessarily have things, especially in this iteration of the deck, that interact with artifacts well. I have more of that in the deck now. It's a lot more reinforced in that way, so I could deal with the Urabrask Forge a lot more reliably. But the thing that I'm missing here, and the thing that I could do right at this moment instead of casting Thousand Moon Smithy, even though that seems like a fun thing to do, is pay a total of 4 mana and tap my Blast Zone to bring it up to 3, and then blow it up on the following turn, which would destroy all 3 converted mana cost permanents, which I think might actually be both their artifact and their enchantment, but it's kind of hard to go back into the video and see about that. But I didn't realize that for a little while. I could have put one on it there too, and maybe I'll realize that later, but not removing Urabrask's Forge from the field, it just, like, because I kind of get into this really awkward place where I'm like, I don't want to take damage from those, but I can't remove artifacts, so I'm going to have to start removing these from the field. And it's just not a good place to be. It's inefficient, because one of the reasons that this deck does well and can drag out matches and just gain cumulative advantage over other people and sit back and hold a big grip of cards while other people are doing poorly is that, I'm basically countering your 3 and 4 drops with 2 drops. Well, they're countering all of my 2 drops into the future, like 1 per turn, essentially, with a 3 drop just once. They paid 3 mana and they have ruined my game with it. So that's a little bit of a weakness or a loss for this. There are other cards like this that can be a problem for it, but I absolutely could have dealt with this with Blast Zone. And every time I see 5 open lands and I don't use them to level up my Blast Zone, it makes me upset. And I think I absolutely could have won this, but at the same time, I'm looking at this replay and man, do they have a grip of cards, because they keep sacrificing the things that are going to get exiled, and they keep getting card draw. But I could have stopped. Well, actually, I could have gotten rid of part of that card draw too. It was the sacrifice and draw 2 cards. It's really dangerous for me, but that slow tick of card draw and the enchantment and the artifact working together, that's going to get you a guaranteed trigger for that enchantment every turn. This is a really powerful combo, and I think I could have wiped it out in its entirety with that Blast Zone, and I know I sound like a broken record right now, but watching me struggle through this match and not deal with that fucking and I lost because of it. But but let's keep going. I certainly don't lose them all, but hands like these are not scary to me. 4 removal spells, 2 lands, and a way to fix mana. I am happy. See, there's not a lot of bad draws that I can really get in this deck. I guess I could really get like all of my in-game threats in one hand. I don't know, but oh yeah, this was the one. Oh man. So this one, I think they had connection issues real early on. So I just started looking at my cards. Not usually a fan of the Your Go, as some people occasionally use it abusively. And you know, one thing I will say about companion avatar guys, they're at least fun to play with when the person's not doing anything. But getting defeated by their internet connection. Even though this match, they do finally come into it, spoiler alert. And they've missed a couple turns, and they missed a couple land drops, and I'm nice to them. I mean, this isn't like a competitive format, I'm not in ranked yet. And I give them a turn to kind of build back up, and boy, do they punish me for it later. So here they are, they're back in the game. Hello. See if we can get a hello back. No hello back. Okay. Let them catch up. But, you know, I do still remove their first creature. Oop, here's another mana dork. Okay, so I've got one of my restless lands now, so this will give me the ability to do something a little bit later in the game. I should have played it this turn, but again, I was trying to give them kind of the benefit of a little bit of recovery, and holy shit, they play that. I'm not even really sure exactly what that is, and I'm not going to let it stay on the field long enough to find out. Let's go ahead and remove the Tithing Blade that I had sitting on the field, play another Tithing Blade to fully wipe their field. Oh, look, it's another one. Another 5/5 boy. And he's even bigger now. Okay. I can deal with that. And let's keep making this blast zone bigger. I mean, there's, again, because this deck is focused on its 2 mana drops, and it answers most of the, like, this card. This is going to get answered by me for probably 2 to 3 mana next turn. 3 on the top end, and only because I'm running out of options. I could have waited a little bit and used spring-loaded Saw Blades, but that could have backfired if it got bigger somehow. So I wanted to go ahead and remove it. And as you're seeing, this is leaving me with a lot of turns where I have extra mana open. And this isn't necessarily giving me the right stuff to be able to start animating my land just yet, but I'm getting close to that point in the game. However, Thousand Moon Smithy. So this is going to give me a gnome that is has power and toughness equal to the uh, artifacts and creatures that I control, and holy shit, it's a Galta. I'm definitely going to have to remove that from play. First order of business. Spring-loaded Saw Blades won't deal with that, and unfortunately I had to get rid of my own gnome. But here we are. Now, unfortunately, it's probably going to be about impossible for me to get Blasting Zone high enough to really be able to respond to a Galta, but I can try to get it at 5 so that it's bigger, because if I blew it up on 4, it would blow up my 1,000 Moon Smithy. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to have to get it up to at least 5 and hope that they play 5 drops. And hey, here's a 5 drop. So, what I could do is pay 3 mana and blow up my Blasting Zone to blow up that guy. However, that is not the way I'm going to play this. They do something pretty smart on their turn though, and I'll point it out and how it screws me over, especially since I'm kind of counting on them to like swing in because they want to do damage with this guy. They want to trample through and hit me, and at this point it's assured that they will. But the thing that changes now is that it has too much toughness for me to spring-loaded Saw Blades. However, I can combine that with blocking with the Phyrexian Obliterator? Vindicator. So the Vindicator doesn't take damage from combat or non-combat. It just doesn't take damage. Instead, that damage gets redirected. It just bounces off the Vindicator and onto something else. So I use that additional damage, the 5 damage that it took, because that's all the toughness it had to take it. And I redirected that to finish off. Oh man, I'm savage playing this at 4%. To go ahead and finish that off. And then I'm going to tap out here, blow everything up. I should have attacked with my Vindicator first and got 5 damage in, because now I'm in a real son of a bitch of a situation. I need to find something I can get rid of. Tithing Blade's the least reanimatable later, so I'm going to remove that, and then remove their big guy and make a 6/6 that they're going to have trouble dealing with. I'm also going to animate this Unstable Glyph Bridge. That is going to mean that if they cast spells, they can't attack. If they attack, they can't cast spells. I have 1 life, so this better fucking work. Also, you're about to see a really neat combo. After I've triggered the first 1,000 Moon Smithy, I can cast a second one. And what happens when I cast the second one is truly absurd, so check this out. That being said, I misplayed this turn in a way that ends the game for me. I should not attack, but I will. I need to have more blockers up, and I just don't do it. I guess those 2 bears are sitting on top of each other. I don't acknowledge that there's 3 things out there, or potentially I don't remember or see that I only have 1 life, but I need that 3rd blocker. I could have locked them out of the game. They don't have a hand. What else are they going to do? I'm at the mercy of their top decking, sure, but this is a really bad place for them to be at and a pretty good place for me to be at. The downside is I'm also top decking, but if they were to attack into me, I could just wipe them out. And their fight mechanics or attack semi-fight mechanics aren't enough to deal with 6/6s. So their removal, I'm just barely above their removal in this case. And I don't know necessarily that I could have won that, because again, it's at the mercy of what they're able to top deck. Like if they get another Galta and I don't have an answer in terms of, I'm at 1 life. But I think I could have won that without those misplays. 2 Restless Fortress in the opening hand is really sexy. Also a mana fixer and a board wipe. A lot of good answers in here too. Just a lot of ways to answer different things. Duskrow's Reliquary would be cool, but can't have everything now, can we? So Phyrexians are an issue for this deck, and all because of a single card, and I'll point it out when it drops and you'll see why it's such an issue. Though technically it's not that big of an issue for a lot of the removal, in this deck. It does actually end up being a problem for spring-loaded Saw Blades. And the thing is, that's a 4 of in this deck. And while I can not use it on occasion, if there is literally nothing that I can remove with it, and they sit dead in my hand, it kind of throws the math off for me in a way that the math was already kind of shaky. So it puts me into a situation where I have to get really lucky on my draws, and this is another thing that really pushes this deck into wanting to run more ways of dealing with enchantments, or just basically dealing with non-land permanents. And I have some ability to do that. I think I actually have some ability to do that in this hand. I just may not realize it if it comes up in this match. I'm not sure if it will, though. But they're in the right colors for it. They're playing some of the right cards for it. And it's like we're both kind of playing stalemate. I absolutely could have swung that turn with my land to kind of push the gap in our life totals by 5. But I would have had to tap out, which isn't too scary. There's not really haste here. Should have done it. That was a mistake. Alright, since they made everything big, they all died at Battle of Bywater. I need more land because I don't have a land in my hand right now, but I'm also going to wait to see if I need removal. Again, probably not likely that I will. Probably should just go ahead and get the land. I didn't do that. Maybe, though, I am actually really close to being able to cast Eagles of the North. That's probably what I'm going at here. Oh, shit. Okay, so this is one of the places where this deck gets kind of technical. I should not have, probably not have spent Glass Casket here. There's a lot of other things that I should use first against this particular deck, but I didn't know that I would need a card exactly like that. See, Glass Casket actually can counter the thing in this deck that makes me scared of it. It's not out yet. And I didn't think about it or not really know about it, and I really wish I had used something like Battle of Bywater instead. But it felt bad to use Battle of Bywater on one creature. I really want to like wipe their field better. Alright, time to play a bird. It always feels awkward going into anything aggressive with this deck because, especially in those colors, yeah, they got removal. Of course they do. We're both playing black and white. We know how this goes. So now it's time to start attacking with lands. I mean, we're here. It's this part of the game. It's come to this. Build a field or get attacked by lands. Fuck. Okay, so unfortunately, while it was possible to deal with this card with the spring-loaded Saw Blades, I'm going to have to destroy evil. Destroying instead of doing damage is the way to deal with that, so dodged a real bullet there. And not only did I have the mana for removal, so I could counter their entire Obliterator, I had enough mana left over to be able to swing in. Now, that enchantment gives their fucking Phyrexians vigilance. And if you're looking at my hand right now, you're realizing at the same time I am how fucking fucked I am at this exact moment. Because they're never going to tap their creatures to attack, so there will never be a window of interaction in which spring-loaded Saw Blades can act. I have basically misplayed everything. I should have played those sooner and more often. I'm going to have to learn that against black-white Phyrexians, especially white Phyrexians, I'm pretty much going to have to play my spring-loaded Saw Blades whenever I can. And try to use those preferentially against other stuff, because It's rough. However, occasionally you do actually draw into board wipe. And this is one of the rare times where it gets me something. When you have a creature on the field casting Battle of Bywater and it survives, crucially, you get a food. But, oof, here's another situation that I can't deal with. Spring-loaded Saw Blades. Dealing that 5 damage would cause me to sacrifice 5 permanents, and I'm just not trying to do that today. I don't think anybody really ever is. Also, definitely could have attacked with a land last turn, but I'm not used to using the blue-white lands, which animate for only 3. I'm used to having to have 5 lands open to animate the black-white land, which costs 4. Also, it's a flyer, so it'd be able to fly right over their Obliterator and deal damage that they can't fuck with. Also, it would get me a map. I could use that map to cause that land to explore and put a +1/+1 counter on it. Again, it's a hard permanent type to remove, so they're a little bit safer to throw your +1/+1 counters on long term and really get value out of them. Thankfully for me, 2 of their creatures are not Obliterators, and I'm honestly not... Oh, they can vote to tap them, so they literally fell into my trap card here. They didn't have to tap their creatures, but they finally fucking did. And here we are. And I know you're thinking, maybe. Woof. Now that's the one that I should have pulled out here. And also, if I had played the land that my hand's telling me I can play, I would have been able to do both of those, which would have been great because they were wide open. And it also would have taken this down to 6 to 13, which is a much better place for me to be attacking from because I can do 5 damage in one turn. Also, I can use that map token to get myself potentially up to 6. So I could have been able to win this turn if I had played my land. Now, what I was trying to do was bluff because I figured I had enough lands on the field, but really this deck wants to get to like 9 or 10. And I'm just not used to that. So I absolutely misplayed that. I should have played my land. That would have given me a little bit more, 3 more damage on that turn because I wouldn't have tapped my creature to animate my second creature, and I would have been able to win on this turn. Also, I should have used the map token to potentially put a +1/+1 counter on my flyer before attacking with it. That would have been another point of damage here. So, yep, got nothing. The only removal in my hand needs you to be tapped, so fuck me. But again, even with the Obliterator, even with having to work around the Obliterator, having to ignore it and race with it, I still could have won that by attacking more efficiently with lands. I just fucked up. So again, 2 lands, Mana Fixer, a whole lot of removal. Well, actually not a whole lot of removal. I do have 2,000 Min Smithy, but they're pretty powerful by themselves, and together as a pair they can be really strong, but it's hard to play them like that, especially if you don't have setup. So this feels in a lot of ways like a bad hand, like a hand I probably shouldn't have accepted, but we're here now. I took it. We are starting to get more lands, but what I need is removal because I have lands, I have in-game, I do not have how I survive to see any of those things through for the most part. But also they aren't throwing threats out, and as awkward as it is, I have this one little opportunity to start some potential for aggro. And I think they are looking at my 1,000 Min Smithy and regretting their life decisions, questioning why they play this game. Looks like we've got mono red here, though. Not really sure what that is, because I'm going to remove it. I have like 5 lands, so let me also, before I do that, have a look at your hand. No, no Urabrask for you. Sorry. Gotta get rid of that. Not as much removal left as I thought, but playing the Visage first, which is the one thing I definitely don't want to craft, in that I have to sacrifice 2 creatures, and I almost never have 2 creatures that I can sacrifice or pull from my graveyard. It's just pretty much impossible. So it's really good to sacrifice for that. Kind of why it's here. Ooh, you've got removal too. Fun. Well, that means I don't have much to do. And unfortunately, I can't. It looks like I can. So close to being able to, but I've got a mana fix to get there, unfortunately, which means I have 1 fewer land than it looks like I do, technically speaking. I mean, technically that's not how that works at all, but figuratively speaking. Another animatable land, and let's get some removal. I was double thinking it, but I know they don't have a whole lot left in their hand, really. And maybe I can draw into something. I got land, which is great. I really want more removal just for what they might have left in their hand, but I feel pretty safe here. I've worn them down. They only have 2 cards in hand. At this point I have 3. 2. But my field does things in later game, and hopefully that'll pull me through, because they just made something that looks threatening. But hey, drew into a unstable glyph bridge, so that goes away, but makes an army, which I guess they can ping me with now. However, I think I might... I only have 4. So close. Alright, so using that Visage of Dread again for the unstable glyph bridge. Now they have to choose between attacking and casting spells, and I'm going to have them make that choice with 1 less creature on the field. Alright, what do you top deck into? Rampaging Raptor? Okay, that means you can't attack this turn. Sorry. Okay. Well, now I have 5 things. But it would be really scary to tap out next turn. Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. We gotta defend. I'm not entirely sure how, but we gotta do it. I think it's finally come to the moment where I blow up one of my lands. Okay. See, this is what I meant by this being a technical deck. I forgot I could do that, so I was thinking, do I cast the legendary thing? Do I do that? But no, I don't. I make my thing big enough to block their stuff without dying. Because, you know, they're a red aggro deck. They've got to attack to win, so I can pick them off a little bit at a time before they can whittle me all the way down. Of course, some of that power is coming from the equipment, and they can re-equip that. Yep. Let's get one more artifact on the field. Maybe this Thousand Moon Smithy can go off a little bit more safely, especially with less of their creatures on the field. I have 12 life. That gives me plenty of insulation, but now I'm going to do the double legendary play. I did not have the patience, and I wanted a blocker, just in case they had some haste or shenanigans that would add some extra power here. They have some... Oh yeah. Making more treasures for attacking with the pickaxe. So I can pick off one of their creatures safely. They don't have a hand, so it's not like they can add additional damage and take out my creature, which would be pretty bad for me. Also, yep. I keep forgetting that that enchantment is not an artifact. I'm used to, in these decks, not having enchantments, but I wanted that for some removal coverage. But now that they're tapped out, it's time to start getting my life back. It also might be a good time to go ahead and play that other land, but I do kind of want them to think that I have cards in hand. I was hoping that would keep them from attacking, but maybe now they should. Or I can already play it. Also, the advantage to running permanents for my removal is that all of those permanents will trigger the Barracks of the Thousand or whatever. So just free creatures on removal in the late game, and holy crap, that's cool. No, and also, like, I'm not paying any additional mana to do this. In fact, even though this deck has way too many mana, this is technically giving me an additional land when it switches over. So, you know, for the deck that already had plenty of mana, let's use a wind con that actually gives me one more. But also, I guess that's kind of ramp. I'll have to let Salubrious Snail tell me if Barracks of the Thousand counts as ramp. I mean, technically it is. Like, I know that it is, but... Alright. You're gonna see all the jank in my hand. Have fun. Okay, they got rid of my Mana Fixer. My white Mana Fixer, because I had white and black Mana Fixer. So let's go ahead and use that black one. Get a Swamp. Also get my blue source, so that I can animate birds, but also the other eagle that I drew that they didn't know about. Let's go ahead and get that and go for black, white, or plains probably is the best thing, but flexibility also is pretty cool. So getting another black source would be fun. Oh, second look at the hand. Nothing. Okay. So you use that to create an incubator guy. Fun. Even though you know I can kill it, I guess you're waiting for me to, like, tap out and attack with it, because that makes it stronger. But I still don't think those are big enough to survive just the things you already know are in my hand. So... it's time to play land. I have 5 of them in my hand. I am so mana flooded right now. And they know what's in my hand. So, like, they know that I'm mana flooded? And this actually allows me to remove a lot of current and future damage. Sure, I didn't block anything or blow up any of their creatures, but I did remove 2 damage from the equation, and I have other ways. Unfortunately, this made that thing strong enough to survive the Glyph Bridge, but if I can land the other side of the Glyph Bridge and not have it removed, then I've changed the game in my favor, and it's going to make me a little bit safer. But again, as the Glyph Bridge is often one of the first creatures I actually stick to the field, and as I'm going up against black and white and Phyrexians, well, the thing is, it's probably going to get removed as soon as it comes into play, in that way as a creature. It's very open to that, unfortunately. And here comes my last removal to get rid of a 2/2, which feels bad. So let's tick up my Blast Zone, because I have nothing left to... Nope. Draw a card. Yep, that was a better decision. Drew a 4th land. Are you kidding me? I am so mana screwed. And again, you know, saying that I run like 26, 27 lands and mana fixers and things that turn into lands in this deck, you would think it would get mana screwed more, and this is really the only time you're going to see it happen. And I'm not even sure that I lose this game. It's not necessary, like, it's not even always the worst thing that I get mana screwed. It just means that I'm really consistent moving into the late game. Fortunately, I had to remove the artifact that was on the field. That's really going to suck for future Thousand Moon Smithies, but it's here, and it got their removal. Yep. Also, in retrospect, similar deal in this match where I said I shouldn't have used the glass cast on what I did. I shouldn't have used Destroy Evil where I did, because that can remove enchantments. So that's gonna really suck if they pull out Phyrexian Awakening and I can't remove it because I used my enchantment removal as a creature removal. There's a lot of flexibility in this deck, which makes it really good like that, but you can really end up kicking yourself pretty hard when later on down the road shit just does not work out for you. And man, I feel like I'm playing this terribly. Here's the Awakening. Beginning of the end for me, really. Unfortunately, Duskrow's Reliquary, while it does expand the removal that my deck is capable of, it unfortunately does not have the ability to deal with enchantments. I really, really would like it to in this particular matchup, but it's not going to do it. So I'm going to have to hunker down defensively with this Vindicator. And I really got to think about how to do this, because to play something in my hand, I have to sacrifice something on the field. And that feels kind of bad. So maybe I'll draw into something else. Maybe I can hold this off. I do have a pretty stellar defending unit. It can't die to combat damage. It does fall to their removal, but I know they don't have any. So they're just aggressively attacking into my face. And they've gone really wide at this point, but I mean, it's by virtue of that Phyrexian that they are not coming for me. And this is where I lose the match. I might have been able to win this. Holding back with the Phyrexian Vindicator, as you can see, I mean, at the very least, it's a good stall tactic. And it's making it possible for me, or it could make it possible for me to hold these guys off. And again, he's top decking at this point, and I'm not. That's a huge advantage for me. I also have a lot more things that I can do with what's on my field, even though he has a field. I could, with the Vindicator open to block one of these, 2-for-1 their creatures, keeping it safe to cull the herd on a later turn. And also keep myself in this game. So yeah, that one was looking bad for me, mainly because I was mana flooded the entire time. But again, like, that doesn't happen very often, and as you could see, I still had room to work with my deck within being mana screwed, just because, you know, it doesn't always have to do a lot. It just has to do the right things at the right time. I mean, for a long part of the game, it seemed being able to do much of any positive value to just be able to build up a late game strategy, which is, again, a weird and like a very long game intensive way of looking at Magic. But also, you know, in a meta that can feel very fast and explosive, there's something long and drawn out and deliberate about this. It's kind of beautiful. Also, this is one of my few opponents that realizes one of the biggest chinks in the armor of this deck is its ability to deal with opponents that go wide, but also its ability to deal with opponents that also go small, because there's not a ton that I can do to deal with this. I do have their Vindicator on the field, which is probably like one of my better options, honestly, because now I can just redirect damage onto other creatures. And now a field of 3 has turned into a field of 1 that I can comfortably chump block. So since I have my removal on the field by way of the Vindicator, I can go after their hand. And this looks really close to like the intro white deck with maybe some tech from some of the other starter white decks. So this might be a newer player or maybe somebody just playing with that initial card base. Pacifism is a pretty good play here. Not my favorite 2-drop white removal spell by any means, but it does things. If you had fully removed it from the field though, that would be a 4/4 gnome, but it is still here even if it can't attack or block, so that's helpful for me. Somebody's getting airlifted in, maybe not. It's also still a thing I can tap for the Thousand Moon Smithy, unfortunately, for my opponent and their pacifism. So now that I've done all of this, all I really have left to do is to attack with land. Now I'm already down a bit because I took some damage early game, and I'm really hoping that this can help me recover and stabilize. Being able to attack with the Restless Fortress early and often. Oh. Wait, what? What just happened? Oh. Oh. Wow. Okay. You don't see that a lot. Instant speed removal is a really good way to screw with this deck, and that was kind of my long game. Well, I guess I'm going to have to slow this game down until I can find something else I can do, which again is pretty difficult against a deck that is going so low and wide, especially with a lot of like 1-drops and 2-drops. Whereas against most decks where I'm talking about, like, you know, they're spending 5 and 6 mana on their big bomb creatures once they get into that part of the game, and I'm removing them for what's only costing me 2. But in this, I'm using 2 and 3 cost removal on things that cost them 1. Things that only attack me for maybe 1 per turn. While my gnome can take out either of their potential creatures, and I'd be happy for one of them to block and, you know, remove itself from the field. I'm naturally pretty nervous about having creatures on the field with this deck. It's not the game state that it desires to play. Yeah. So choosing how to 2-for-1 here, probably, I mean, there's other ways I could have blocked. I'm not necessarily sure that there's a way that keeps the Miner's Guidewing from allowing something to explore, at least if my opponent's smart about it. But also, I probably should have known that there was nothing good to use that on in their hand, and instead maybe animated a land to attack them with, but I'm not in a good board state really to be doing that. So again, always a thing that I can do with my mana once I've got enough stuff on the field. I can add some counters to Blast Zone, maybe? Okay. Well, I guess if I have no other options, wipe the field. Wait. Whoa, hold on. There was definitely a reason why I didn't wipe the field earlier, even though it was one of the only ways to deal with the creatures that they had swarming. And while arguably this isn't the worst place for my deck to be, and is kind of a place that it's used to fighting from, yeah, blowing up your own Phyrexian Vindicator, not a good play. No way to argue for that. Maybe I can still pull this one out, but I'm getting desperate, and I'm making a Dread Alciosaur. never done this before because usually there aren't 2 creatures in my graveyard, but hey, they were there. Figured I'd use them. Also, let's go ahead and tick that up a little bit more. Hopefully that'll be able to deal with the Sarah Angel for me. Okay, now it can't block, so I'm going to get hit with... Oh, nope, they're going to flip the thing, which is going to give them, I believe, another... Basically a second Sarah Angel. That Sarah Angel isn't going to have a mana cost, though, which means that I can't blast it, but I can battle Bywater. I drew into more removal. You know, sometimes, and this is... Fucking A! It's one of the things about this deck, though. Sometimes you can make a mistake and then just double down by doing it again, and it's better the second time. But also, I did happen to draw into the one piece of removal that can't deal with their 1/1. Yipes. So now I'm gonna make a play that I just feel like I have to. But also Barracks of the Thousand is going to give me a gnome. Once again, I've reached the point in the game where casting removal is giving me creatures. So that's always a fun place to be for this deck. Fucking pacifism. Okay. Well, I was thinking, you know, now that I actually have a creature on the field and good board presence, this is a terrible time to have Battle of Bywater. But, well, I guess I could do that too. So this guy is gonna lifesteal 1 at the beginning of my turn. The life totals are pretty close already. If I play the land, I should be able to animate. But unfortunately, I had already passed into combat and was unable to play the land then. So I had to pass through combat, then play the land, which would have been too late to animate the thing and attack with it. But, I think you know how this next turn's gonna go. Haha, you didn't. I drew a Tithing Blade. I'm gonna use that instead. Except, haha, nope, I'm gonna make my creature animated. Since it's small enough to get under Battle of Bywater, that's also gonna give me a food, which is gonna help with the future gnomes. Also, this bird, when it deals damage, is going to give me maps. Those maps I can use to put +1/+1 counters on the bird. Also, another bird on top of my deck, so it looks like a bird fight is happening. Thing that's making me nervous though is that they have cards in hand, which usually doesn't happen. Also, once again, a 2-for-1. This is the kind of thing that, and this definitely wasn't in any of the base decks. They have definitely modified this deck quite a bit. I take it back. You've definitely used your card pool well and modified this deck to make it very interesting in ways that might not necessarily win you a lot of games outside of this, but are definitely a struggle for me to play against. Just because you're putting so many things on the field at one time, and I can, generally speaking, only remove them one at a time. Also, when you have a lot of options on the field and some of them suck, my Tithing Blade gets a lot worse. So, Thousand Moon Smithy, Barracks of the Thousand, each one of them is going to trigger and give me one of these guys. Now, I'm going to thin their herd a little bit with Tithing Blade. Sure, it's not great against this scenario because they can just give me their weakest creature, but I am overwhelming them on board now, and I can pop one of their creatures if it tries to retaliate attack, and I have a huge life advantage at this point. So I'm just going to attack in with the one creature that I can. leave my my flyer up to potentially block. Attacking into a 4 toughness creature with a 3 toughness creature just leaves me weaker on defense with no actual advantage on offense. So I shouldn't do that. They shouldn't attack into me. It's useless either way. We're just tapping our creatures for basically no reason, which in a game like this is not how you win. Ooh. Also, not doing enough damage to kill something is not how you win. So, and they don't really seem to have any way to follow that up for lethal. So, in that case, it's time to make a bird and attack with everything. That treasure, or map, that the bird... Well, no, it's not going to generate the map until afterwards, but it would power up all of my gnomes. And that is how I made it to gold tier with a really dumb deck. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Jackie Fox. This has been another hour-long arena video, going in depth on a video that on a deck that you might want to build, or you might find interesting, or it may just be way too fiddly for anybody to play with, really, other than me. And so I had this friend when I first started playing Magic. He was always going on about building the perfect deck that was nothing but lands. So I think he'd be really happy with how often I swing at people with my lands with this deck, and how effective a strategy it can end up being. So, who said artifacts weren't good for removal, and who said that land decks couldn't win? I don't know. It's really late. My voice is probably suffering for it from what you can hear. I don't know. So I'm gonna head to bed and put this recording off. So I need you to remember to like and to subscribe and to hit that link in the description to see all sorts of other Jackie Fox content, other channels, podcasts, books, Discord, Patreon. All of those things can be found in the description. Go check it out. But definitely be sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell, all the YouTube things. You know what you're doing here. You don't just start watching hour-long videos on YouTube without knowing that you need to like and subscribe. So I shouldn't even have to tell you. So all I really need to say is, see you in the next one.